Welcome to this explainer on DomOS. You know, for the last 30 years, the web has been stuck in one very specific paradigm. We, the humans, have to learn the machine's language. We have to figure out where to click, navigate complex menus, and basically guess what every little icon means. But today, we're unpacking a framework that completely flips that script. It turns passive websites into AI-piloted applications, literally letting a large language model navigate your site like a human would, but at lightning speed. Let's get right into it. So the developers lay it out with this pretty bold manifesto. DomOS transforms your existing React components into AI tools without rewriting your application. And that's exactly the magic here. The goal absolutely isn't to trash your existing codebase or just hallucinate an entirely new UI from scratch. You keep your app, your business logic, and your components exactly as they are. DomOS just hooks an AI agent into your interface, letting it basically see what the user sees and act on it using tools you explicitly declare. All right, here is our roadmap for unpacking DomOS today. We'll start with towards the agentic interface, move into neural DOM binding, look at ADTP and shadow context, cover security and keeping the human in control, and wrap up with the ecosystem, SDKs, and widgets. Starting with Section 1, towards the agentic interface and rethinking user interaction. Like we talked about, the friction of modern web apps is that we always have to learn the machine's language. But with incredibly fast models like Gemini Flash or GPT-4o Mini, we can finally shift to an agentic UI, where the interface actually understands us. Now, look at the clear distinction here between DomOS Agentic UI and your standard generative UI. A typical generative AI chatbot will often just hallucinate new interface components on the fly, right? It's unpredictable, and it can easily bypass your app's core rules. An agentic UI, on the other hand, doesn't just manipulate the DOM freely. It receives a structured context and acts strictly through verified entry points, basically the explicit actions your app actually exposes. So the real takeaway here is that your app keeps its exact business logic. DomOS is simply acting as a bridge. It translates the user's natural language into an actionable intent, checks the living state of your product, and then triggers your specific action hooks. It's really not just a chatbot dressed up as a framework. It's a true orchestration layer for your app's real capabilities. Moving on to Section 2, Neural DOM Binding, Connecting AI to the Living DOM. Let's see how this orchestration actually hooks into the living, breathing elements on your user screen. Think of it like this. The tools available to the AI literally live and die with your React, Vue, or Svelte components. Instead of giving the AI some massive global list of every possible action in your app right at startup, DomOS relies on an ephemeral, dynamic registry. If a user goes to checkout, the payment tools appear. If they go back to the homepage, boom, those are instantly swapped out for search tools. The AI only sees what's relevant to the current screen. No global, out-of-context action lists, which perfectly prevents those crazy out-of-context errors. Now, to give the AI eyes without totally overwhelming your network bandwidth or blowing up token limits, DomOS uses what they call the shadow context. This passively feeds the current UI state to the large language model. It's not copying your whole massive HTML tree. It just sends the crucial bits you choose to expose, the current URL, active tools and filters, what's in the cart. It's a lightweight JSON representation that helps the model understand the situation perfectly without forcing it to parse raw HTML. All right, Section 3, ADTP and shadow context, the central nervous system. Now that we understand the brain and the eyes, let's explore the nervous system connecting the front-end client to the back-end server. This relies on ADTP, or the Agent-to-DOM Transfer Protocol. This is the mandatory communication standard here. It's essentially a JSON over WebSocket protocol that dictates exactly how the client and the orchestrator server talk to each other, handling the whole lifecycle from that initial handshake to real-time context updates and tool executions. Let's track a single user command like add to cart to see this in action. First, the user speaks or types. Second, the server sends that input along with the current shadow context to the LLM. Third, the AI decides it needs to trigger the add to cart tool and sends a tool call down to the client. Fourth, the front end executes your actual local JavaScript function. And finally, step 5, the result is sent back to the server so the AI can provide a conversational response. Simple, right? But you have to keep this strict technical contract in mind. Because of this asynchronous flow,
Any async work you do inside a tool, like pinging a database to actually add an item, must be explicitly returned or awaited within the tool's handler. The framework only awaits the promise returned by that handler. If you forget this, DomOS might send a success signal to the AI too early, and if the database call fails a second later, the AI won't know, and you get disconnected errors.
Which brings us to Section 4, Security and Keeping the Human in Control, the DomOS immune system. Obviously, giving an AI the power to click, delete, and buy things requires some serious safeguards.
You definitely can't just let an LLM run wild. To manage this, the framework maps out 4 mandatory risk levels you assign to your tools. None means silent execution, great for harmless stuff like searching products. Low triggers a simple toast notification, like when adding to a cart. But high and critical are where it gets serious. These actually block the AI's action and pop up a modal requiring explicit human approval. So if the AI tries to clear a cart or confirm an order, the user always holds the final key.
And to guarantee true human isolation, DomOS has a brilliant safeguard against rogue AI actions. When a high-risk security modal asks for approval, it gets fully isolated inside an inaccessible, closed shadow DOM. This means your app's global CSS can't accidentally hide the modal, and more importantly, the AI itself physically cannot manipulate the DOM to hallucinate a click on the Approve button. It's totally locked down. Let's move on to Section 5, the ecosystem, covering SDKs and widgets, and practical front-end implementation. DomOS actually provides really ergonomic adapters for all the major web frameworks. Whether you're using React hooks, Vue composables, Svelte stores, or Angular signals, the Agent-to-DOM protocol integrates naturally with your preferred component lifecycle. There's even a vanilla browser SDK that can auto-discover tools just by scanning your HTML for specific data attributes, which is honestly perfect for platforms like Shopify or WordPress. Now, if you don't want to build a custom UI from scratch, you can literally just inject this ready-to-use DomOS widget. It's a standalone chat interface that handles text, real-time PCM audio streaming, and animated visual states right out of the box. It comes with 3 presets, a compact phone call style, a modern chat panel, and a really cool immersive travel style. It is hands down the fastest way to get this running in a prototype or production app. But hey, if you are building a custom voice mode, the documentation lays out some absolute non-negotiable rules for the PCM 24 kHz audio pipeline. Failing to properly align your 2-byte audio chunks or failing to schedule playback sequentially will literally crash your real-time Gemini Live audio streams. It's fascinating how strict these guardrails are, but they perfectly prevent overlapping audio, choppy voices, and catastrophic memory errors. Looking at the big picture, the economic engine behind this open-source project reveals a strategy centered on offering managed enterprise hosting. While the core framework is open source, managing thousands of simultaneous WebSockets and LLM latency is tough. So, DomOS Cloud manages that WebSocket infrastructure, handles rate limiting, and even hosts a plugin marketplace for pre-packaged skills. The tools to transform passive websites into proactive agentic interfaces are officially in your hands. We're moving away from just chatting with text boxes to an era of interfaces that take real action alongside us. So, armed with this framework, how are you going to build your next self-driving app? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.